Good evening. During World War II, many Allied soldiers and airmen were caught and held by Adolf and his jackbooted Luftwaffe in prisoner of war camps all over Germany. There are some great POW stories from this time, and many of these stories involve daring escapes from POW camps. We've all heard about these: the late-night dousing of lights, the brave airman lowering himself through the trap door, moving quickly and quietly from shadow to shadow, avoiding the nasty searchlights moving around the compound. Hollywood made a couple of very popular movies based on the escape scenario, namely The Great Escape and Stalag 17. It wasn't until recently, though, that a particular aspect of their escape plans became known. You see, a few items that would be helpful to those planning to escape would be very hard to come by in camp. Things like a compass, money, and maps were seemingly impossible to lay your hands on. That is until MI9 branch of British intelligence decided to smuggle these supplies in. Well, the first thing that had to be done was to invent fake humanitarian groups. Now, these would be used to deliver seemingly innocent care parcels that would contain small game items to help occupy the POW's time and make life a little less mundane and boring. They found that the Germans were very open to allowing these in, since occupying the prisoners' time in harmless ways helped to keep their minds off other things, like escape, for example. MI9 agent Christopher Clayton Hutton and CT6 agent Charles Fraser Smith devised a Trojan horse ploy and determined that the best way was to disguise escape items in some way and pass them into the camps by way of these care packages. In their foresight, they decided to avoid using the Red Cross parcels, since if an item would be discovered, the Germans could stop these coming in altogether. And there was simply too high of a value placed on the Red Cross parcels to risk losing them. So that led, in a meandering kind of way, to John Waddington Limited of London. When considering getting maps of Germany, Spain, France, and Italy to our brave allies, and have these maps survive and not dissolve into a pile of goo after getting wet, they needed to be made of much tougher stuff, like silk, for example. And it just so happened that J. Waddington Limited developed a process to print on silk and other cloth materials. The next step was concealment. Well, as luck would also have it, J. Waddington Limited also produced a product in the UK under license from Parker Brothers, New York. The item was the game Monopoly. And so it was that British intelligence began to hatch and carry out their plan with great secrecy, along with toy manufacturers like Waddington and Jacques of London, who worked on the scheme with a few hand-selected and devoted people. In the way items were concealed, by cutting out spaces in the cardboard, they found they could conceal files, thin compasses, currency, and maps sandwiched between the top and bottom paper sheets of the playing board, making the items invisible to the observer. To signify which game had the escape items, a small red dot was printed onto the free parking space. Pulling back the top paper layer of the Monopoly game board revealed the escape kit. Another interesting map delivery system was through packs of playing cards. On the back of the cards were seemingly innocent-looking designs, but each design was in fact one of 52 pieces to a puzzle. When laid out on the table, it formed a completed map. Waddington wasn't the only company to produce escape games. This little gem is the Games Compendium, made by Jacques of London. This was sent to prisoners of war as just a normal game, again complete with the Jacques London on the cribbage board for all to see. But concealed inside was money, maps, and even a radio set. A popular chess set was the Ajax tube set. The pieces were simple hard cardboard discs, with the playing piece printed on top of them. In this set, the white queen is hollow and contained a small compass. A silk map is under the paper wrapping on the cardboard tube. The printing on the tube would indicate it being an escape kit and which pieces were hollow. Many Allied airmen and soldiers owed their successful escape to the Brits who developed and delivered these kits. In Colditz, these kits helped 316 escape attempts, which saw 32 men make it all the way home. One side note is about the claim that safe houses were indicated on the maps. Although roads, rail lines, and possible German military emplacements were shown, safe houses were deliberately left off for fear the maps falling into the wrong hands. The much sought-after Monopoly escape games are nearly impossible to come by these days. After the war, the remaining special edition sets were destroyed and everyone involved in the plot was sworn to secrecy. The reason for the secrecy was very simple. Should another war occur, Allied officials wanted to be able to break out the board games once more, and because of this strict secrecy surrounding the game plot, these manufacturers' roles in the war would go unrecognized until 2007, when the case was declassified. So, the next time you pull that Monopoly game out of the closet and after a time you roll the dice only to get your ass thrown in jail, you just might find yourself remembering our little tale.